Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 3:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Kash Patel is with us, former deputy assistant to President Trump. We'll talk to him on the first day of the Democrat convention in Chicago, all boarded up in preparation for those crazy Democrats. Julio Rosas is here at 4 o'clock today. He's been on the street watching the chaos. We'll get an update from him. At 4:30, Chuck Thies joins us. He's an expert on all things politics and Washington, D.C. in particular as, well, who could have seen this coming? Councilmember Trayon White arrested. They say, well, he's guilty. They claim he's guilty. We'll find out more details from Chuck Thies. And then Chris Bedford is here at 5 o'clock from The Blaze with a closer examination of one Kamala Harris. Or is it Kamala? What is it these days? You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. My gratitude to Dan Mandis for filling in this past week, and for Pete Mundo and Corey and Ganamore for doing it the week prior. I was hit or miss, over these last 2 weeks, really. I was traveling the country. I was traveling most of the East Coast. And, in fact, 2 weeks ago, I got to do a couple of shows from various locations in the country. That was good to be able to do that. And then last week, just spent time with the family, visiting some old friends, and getting a chance to see, again, so much of the country. All the way from about as far southwest as you can go in Florida to almost as far northeast as you can go in Maine. Lots of driving all around the country. Got to see so many beautiful things, and also the state of some of the towns, the communities in our country, which are clearly not thriving under Bidenomics. I'm here to report to you, not thriving. Today, my voice is coming to you from the middle of Maine. I'm in Maine right now, having just wrapped up a very long conversation with Tucker Carlson for his podcast. I think it's supposed to be posted coming up either later today or perhaps tomorrow, but that's for Tucker Carlson's podcast. I was just telling my producer, Corey, that it turns out I think we've achieved the Guinness World Record for Tucker Carlson podcast. It's as I understand it, the longest one he's done so far. So if you're interested in that at all, that should be coming out either later today or tomorrow. It's going to be good. We had basically sort of a deep philosophical conversation in a lot of ways, spiritual in a lot of ways, and a practical conversation about what's happening right now in America with our politics, what this election all means, what happens even if, God forbid, Kamala Harris is able to pull this thing out through all of the various rigging that especially the media is undertaking right now to cast her as some sort of savior. So a good conversation, and maybe we'll hopefully I'd like to play some clips for you tomorrow on the show, just some of my favorite moments. But yes, the Democrat convention has begun in Chicago. This is not an area of the country where they're trying to convince anybody to vote for them. They're not trying to reach out to middle America. That's not it at all. This is Chicago. It's deep blue. It's a deep blue city in a blue state, Illinois. And they've decided they're going to hold it there. They decided that some time ago. And it was a clear sign as any that all they care about is appealing to their base and nobody else. They just want to whip their base into a frenzy. They're going to rely on the media to try and suppress everybody else. And they're hoping it's game, set, match from there. And not to mention, of course, their election shenanigans, which are a huge thing, playing out all across the country. Kamala Harris just hired Mark Elias. Did you see this headline? Mark Elias joined the Kamala Harris campaign. And they're building out a massive legal team. The media spinning that as some sort of, they're just trying to stop Trump from stealing our democracy. When, of course, what they're really up to is all across the country, screwing with the democratic systems, making them more opaque, making it so that people can stuff ballots into drop boxes no matter where you are in the country. And that's how you conduct an election. That's what they want to do. And that's why they brought in the guy who always is at the center of all of these fights. That's Mark Elias, now working explicitly for Kamala Harris's campaign. This convention is, just compare it to the Republican convention a couple weeks back. Could the difference not be more stark? So Minneapolis, Republican convention, you get these guys out there and all of a sudden, Milwaukee, the Republican convention, you get these guys out there, and it is placid. It is hopeful. It's optimistic. You have night after night of great speakers, very compelling, about the difficulties that people are going through, how to uplift people. It was excellent. No chaos, no violence. You didn't have Republican voters wearing masks, smashing their way through the streets. Nothing like that. It was a convention of order. Meanwhile, what is the Democrat convention? Genital mutilation and disorder. They literally have a vasectomy truck set up at the convention because they haven't taken the genital mutilation stuff far enough. They're like, we've got more for you. We have microgenital mutilation. So they set up a vasectomy truck outside the convention. Planned Parenthood did. And even before the festivities began today, last night, you had the pro-Hamas crowd marching through the streets of Chicago, causing chaos. Right away. Here's, let's see, this is Julio Rosas. He's going to join us later in the program. Captured some of this audio as people are chanting about how the DNC needs to go home, or we're going to bring the war here to America. All right, so again, could you envision Republican voters chanting that they're going to bring war to the United States of America? No, they want to bring order. They're tired of war. They want peace. They want prosperity. Not so at the Democrat convention. As Democrat voters go out there on the streets and say and yell at the DNC for being insufficiently anti-Israel, and then say, if you don't answer our demands, we're going to bring war to this country. That's their plan. Here's another one, a dude on a megaphone screaming at the cops and, of course, calling them pigs.
Piggy, piggy, go back home! Piggy, piggy, go back home! Or we'll bring the war home! Or we'll bring the war home! DNC, go home! DNC, go home! Or we'll bring the war home!
Revolting. Can you imagine if your daughter came home with that guy? Disgusting. What would your house smell like after he left? Ugh. Gross. So that guy's losing his mind, screaming at the cops. Sorry, which party supports the cops again? Oh, I'm sorry, that video made it crystal clear, doesn't it? Screaming at the officers who are just trying to keep the peace in Chicago. Piggies, piggies, go home, or we will bring the war home. What do they have to do with Israel, by the way? Like, they're chanting, the we'll bring the war home chant is their threat to support Hamas's goals here in the United States. What do the cops have to do with this? They're not setting policy on Israel. They're not involved in policy making in Gaza. What do the cops have to do with it? Chicago cops. Oh, they produce order. That's why they're bad. They're a part of Western civilization, having police officers, law enforcement, the kind of people you call upon in your moment of need in order to try and restore some order. And there they are being shouted at, probably questioning why they do this job, as they're not being supported at all. Did Kamala Harris release a statement in support of the cops? We will not stand for this. We will not stand for this. No, nothing. She just let her voters scream in the faces of those officers that they're pigs. They need to go home, or else we're going to bring war to America. This is, again, could they be more clear about who they are? There's another group, of course, always in masks in the service of trying to hide their identities so that they can't be held accountable in any way.
I'm gonna tell you about it.
This is awful, by the way. Just artistically awful. I already don't agree with the message, but at least present it in a musically interesting way. All you fascists gotta lose. Do I hear a little flute in the background? It sounds like a tiny little Hobbit flute is playing in the background of this. Oh man, it's a good thing they're so comical. At least they're amusing. At least they're amusing, but amusing people with contemptible opinions. The DNC, of course, got started today. At the beginning of the day, they had segregated meetings for consistent with the entire Kamala Harris campaign, such as it is for as long as it's existed now. They had segregated meetings. They had meetings this morning based on skin color to begin the convention. I kid you not, and they're all scheduled at the same time, so you had to pick the one that you were allowed to be in order to attend it. You were. I don't see any white meetings on the schedule, so I guess the white privilege is you get to sleep in. You didn't have to be at any of the morning meetings, which you get to skip the meeting because you're white. Oh, that sounds like white privilege. What are you doing? But they really did start day one with segregated meetings, beginning at 9:30 local time. All these meetings ran for 2 hours. What could they talk about for 2 hours? Each of them, ready? Black caucus meeting, Hispanic caucus meeting, AAPI caucus meeting. That's Asian American Pacific Islander. They lump everybody together. You're not allowed to separate that out anymore. Native American caucus meeting, ethnic council meeting, whatever that is. So I don't see white meeting here, although it was just a couple weeks ago that all the celebrities and lefty sports stars were all getting together, and they were holding their segregated fundraisers for Kamala Harris. And they thought this was a great idea. They said, this is awesome. Was it White Dudes for Kamala? Wasn't that the event? And then a bunch of embarrassing men all got on a Zoom call, the Chinese Zoom call, and talked about how much they love Kamala and how you're not a true American unless you love Kamala. They said obediently. In a world where there was no primary, she was designated the nominee. Heck, even this convention is fraudulent. You know that Kamala Harris is already the nominee, right? So unlike with Trump, when Trump showed up at the Republican convention, he wasn't officially the nominee yet. They actually have a delegate process in the Republican Party. The delegates had to carry forward all of the votes of the primary and say, yeah, this is our guy. He's the nominee of the party. And it was obvious he was going to be. But the point of the convention is to designate him as the nominee, to have the delegates show up and then represent the interests of their respective states. Democrats already did this, and they did it in secret. They did it over the internet. And so everyone who's there today, they're just shooting blanks. They're not actually doing it. Everything about this is fraudulent. From Kamala Harris's recent discovery that, hey, the border seems like a problem. On day one, I'm going to tackle it. Oh, stop it. To stealing all sorts of Trump policies. I'm going to give a child tax credit. That was a Trump policy. I'm gonna do no tax on tips. Yeah, that's a Trump policy. What? What are you talking about? And then she's, of course, trying to sell that she's a completely changed person. She's changed all of her policies without addressing her prior positions, her defund the police nonsense, her single-payer health care nonsense, her utter communism. Sometimes it's burping out. You saw what she did on Friday, the price-fixing scheme that she had, which was awful, where she's like, we're going to fix the price of groceries. Oh, how has that turned out historically? How does it turn out when these communist regimes impose price controls on groceries? How does that usually go? Oh, chaos, death, and destruction? Yeah, that's how it turns out. And this is so crazy that, of course, like so many people on the right are correctly condemning it. This is nuts. This is communism. And you even have some of the lefty outlets condemning it, too. They're coming out. But, it's funny. I'm reading a little bit more into their motivations here because, like, for instance, the Washington Post has published a couple of op-eds attacking Kamala Harris for this. This is a stupid idea. This isn't going to help anything if you impose price controls on groceries. They're telling the truth. Why are they doing that? Do you want to know? And I've noticed some of the coverage is like, is the dam starting to break? Are they turning against Kamala Harris? No. On this issue, Jeff Bezos' newspaper does not like the direction Kamala Harris is going. Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, which generates in the vicinity of $40 billion in grocery sales each year. It owns Whole Foods and its own Amazon line of grocery stores, and it does e-delivery, which is really the biggest component of all of this. The last thing they want is Kamala Harris interfering, using the government in the grocery market. So for them, they don't want the government involved in their business. Unless, of course, it involves giving them money. Then they're perfectly happy with that. But price fixing from Kamala Harris? Unleash the hounds. So now you have the Washington Post publishing all these op-eds. This is a bad idea. Don't do this to grocery stores. Uh-huh. Yeah, okay. And meanwhile, like constantly cheering her on, no matter what she says, no matter how she cackles, no matter how she stumbles, she's amazing. The very same woman who just months ago, perhaps weeks ago, they were saying was ill-suited to be president of the United States, that the voters didn't like her enough, that the Democrats are in a real quandary. How do they solve a problem like Kamala? Well, the answer? The media. The media will lie as much as it takes to get her across the finish line. And we're watching it happen right now. All right, let's go to the phones. First up, we got Matt calling in from Fairfax. He's on line 2. Hello, Matt. Good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Colonnade Show.
Hi, Vince. Listen, wouldn't it be truly inclusive if Planned Parenthood would set up their mobile vasectomy and abortion vehicles along the southern border to help assimilate the newcomers to the ways of the United States?
That's right, to inculcate them into our culture, Matt. Our culture is to abort your children and do vasectomies on the men. Why not do it on the border? That's interesting. Why do you think they're not doing it on the border? Why is it, just to Americans?
I think they would. A mountain of criticism would come down on them. They can push that on some people, but not on other people.
Yeah, that's right. Can you imagine? Yeah, like that. The headlines on that. Like, what are they doing? It's eugenics on the border. How are they're eliminating people? Oh, really? So what is it when you're doing it to American citizens in places like Chicago? Like, and I do think it's kind of amusing, Matt, that like they're doing vasectomies at the DNC. I've lots of Republicans who are laughing about it. Yeah, sure, fine. All you Democrats get vasectomies. It'll be good on net for the rest of us. But the reality is, Matt, they've been pushing anti-life policies for a long time, and it hasn't slowed down the fanaticism we've seen growing for Democrats in the country. It hasn't, and it's just so sad. It's so ridiculously sad. Hey, coming up, Kash Patel is going to be with us. He'll talk to us about what's going on at this convention where, remember, it's totally fake. Kamala's already the nominee. They voted for her in secret. So what are they doing in Chicago? Hey, good afternoon to you. Now 335 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Julio Rosas is with us at 4 o'clock. He's been in the streets of Chicago as it's already become chaotic there. You know, local businesses have had to board up their windows in anticipation of more Democrats descending upon the city. Chuck Thies will be here at 4:30 as D.C. Council member Trayon White gets arrested by the FBI. He's the guy who says that the Jews control the weather, I think. Didn't he say that? He said some version of that. They control the climate. Yeah, and then he apologized by going to the Holocaust Museum, and then he got bored halfway through the tour and he left. He's an unbelievable person. Well, he's arrested today by the FBI. Chuck Thies will talk about that. At 5 o'clock, Chris Bedford is here from The Blaze, and you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The Democrat convention underway today, and it started, as all good Democrats events do, with with the practice of the moment, whatever the fad is. Right now it's land acknowledgements, where you have to declare who previously had conquered the land you're standing on. They don't think enough of the tribes involved to get their names correct, though.
We're going to jump right into the land acknowledgement. The Democratic National Committee wishes to acknowledge that we gather together to state our values on lands that have been stewarded through many centuries by the ancestors and descendants of tribal nations.
They were conquered from each other. They were stewarded.
Who have been here since time immemorial.
What?
We honor the community.
That's not even true. No person has been here since time immemorial. That's ridiculous.
Native to this continent, and recognize that our country was built on indigenous homelands. We pay our respects to the millions of indigenous people throughout history who have protected our lands, waters, and animals. While we meet in Chicago, we also recognize and honor the traditional homelands of the Anishinaabe, also known as the Council of the Three Fires, Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations. We acknowledge the many other tribes who consider this area their traditional homeland, including the Miamia, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sac and Fox, Peoria, Kaskia,
Come on, girl.
Wea, Kickapoo, and Muscatan, Muscotan.
Muscotan.
Let's see, and I believe that is That is our land acknowledgement. Maadzigirads nakbagoo. Thank you.
Oh, man. She should do speeches for Kamala Harris, shouldn't she? You know, she's more eloquent, at least. All right. Here to discuss what the hell is going on at this ridiculous convention that we all have to be subjected to for the rest of the week is Kash Patel. He's a former deputy assistant to President Trump, former chief of staff at the Department of Defense, and the author of Government Gangsters. Kash, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, great to be back on the program.
I mean, can you imagine putting a convention together and being like, how can we make it as ridiculous as possible?
Well, you can give away free vasectomies, abortions, and have an 18-foot IUD on top of whatever that just was. So I think, you couldn't have like a comedian. My good buddy Jim Brewer is one of the funniest guys in America, probably couldn't come up with this material even if he tried. Yeah. And that's their campaign. It's to go so far to the left and so radical that they are devoid of any sound policy that Americans actually care about. Which one of those policies is going to improve their lives and protect their children and allow them to be educated in a free community in which parents have the choice of security and law enforcement first? Totally. None of them.
Totally.
And that's what they're on.
Well, it leads you to one of two unfortunate conclusions. One is that they're only making a base play, so they're not interested in what normal people think. They just want to turn out the craziest people in the country. Or they think they have the election so rigged that it doesn't even matter that they're florid lunatics on stage.
I think it's a combination of things. I think that they not that they have it rigged, but they are going to rig it again. Remember, these are the people that brought you Russiagate, which half of America still believes the disinformation lies from the radical left, and Democrats who funded it. And they brought you 51 Intel letter. They brought you Hunter Biden's laptop. They brought you Ukraine impeachment 1. They brought you the insurrection disinformation campaign, and the list goes on. So they're working up something now, and whether it's going to be to get illegal immigrants to vote illegally in this upcoming election or buy your vote by telling you everything's going to be free forever and bankrupting this country, they're working on something. I just don't know exactly what it is.
Well, you're definitely watching at least some portions of it in public, which is the press is lying nonstop about Kamala Harris and advancing her ridiculous claims that she's leading somehow a joyful campaign, when, of course, it's the polar opposite. And so what role do you think the media plays in all of this? If you're rigging an election, it sure helps if you control information. Mr. Patel. Is he still with us? He's still on the line. We can't hear him. Kash Patel. We are talking to Kash Patel, former deputy assistant to President Trump, trying to see if we can't get this connection going. Did we drop him? Okay, good. We're going to try and call him back. That's what we do when we lose somebody. Kash Patel with us. It is brazen, isn't it? A land acknowledgement? And then their own voters show up and are attacking the city and screaming about how they're going to bring war to the streets of America if the DNC doesn't pledge its undying support to Hamas. What? This isn't a party that's interested in reaching the rest of, middle America, normal America. Widening the tent, that's the phrase they usually use. No, that's not it. No, they're burning that tent. That tent's being burnt to the ground. Kash Patel is currently getting phone calls from our booth. We're trying to get him back on the line to get him back in here. So before we do, how about this? I'll share some more of this crazy audio for you from the DNC. Here's Tim Walz introduced today at the Asian American Pacific Islander Caucus meeting, and apparently they mangled even his rank. They're lying again about this.
I am so excited and so proud to welcome our vice presidential candidate, soon-to-be nominee for vice president, Command Master Sergeant. I'm going to start with the title that is very important to me. The Command Sergeant Major.
Oh, my gosh.
Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota.
Choking on lies. Immediately lying over something that's been very well litigated at this point. If you think that he's a retired Command Sergeant Major, you're a moron. You're a dupe. You've fallen for it. It's a scam. He lied about this.
Very well beloved governor.
Beloved. He shot his own constituents with paintballs. He's beloved. He set up a snitch line so they could rat each other out during the COVID pandemic.
He's also the state champion. Yes. State champion football coach, and now our joyful warrior.
Joyful?
Please welcome Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. Thank you.
The guy's a goofball. The guy's a total klutz. Have you seen this Tim Walz on stage? It's like he's using his body for the first time. He doesn't know how to move. His arms headed in all sorts of weird directions. His legs bouncing around. It's crazy. Also, Tim Walz was introduced at this thing as somebody said that he was going to be the first Chinese vice president. Like, what is happening? So Tim Walz has been to China dozens of times. Loves China. Big fan of China. And here's how they talked about Tim Walz today at the DNC.
Well, Tim Walz is going to be the first Chinese vice president of our country. When he broke out in Mandarin with me like 5 years ago, my jaw dropped. I said, really?
He's going to be the first. Okay, first of all, here's what we need. I need audio of Tim Walz speaking Mandarin. I need that stat. Mandarin. Tim Walz is going to be the first Chinese vice president. Now, it wouldn't have been that long ago that, that'd be kind of really embarrassing to say out loud. Yes, he's going to be the first communist vice president. What? And now they're saying it out loud. Once again, that brazenness on display at the Democrat convention. Who else? Randy Weingarten spoke. She's the teachers union head, and she was ridiculous. She had this to say.
Could you imagine when you cannot, as a teacher, say, when someone is coming up to you and saying, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I am. Can you help me? Mm-hmm. And you may be fired for answering that question.
What? Why would you be fired for answering that question? If someone comes up to you with an identity crisis, I don't know who I am. Why would you be fired for answering the question? Oh, you'd be fired for telling them the truth. That's what Randy Weingarten, or excuse me, she's saying here that you shouldn't tell them the truth, that you should lie to them. But in her world, what that means is you should tell them that their body's a mistake. Look, the core of what she's claiming here is fundamentally about the transgender crap. It's the garbage that you're trying to pump into the minds of these kids. Oh, yeah, you were born in the wrong body. And let's not tell your parents about this, but this is the conversation that you and I are going to have in private. That's not creepy or anything. Your teacher is telling you your body's a mistake, and you know what you really should do? Go under the knife. Dedicate the rest of your life to the pharmaceutical industry, would you? See what that does to you. That's a good idea. So Randy Weingarten, this ghoul, this awful person, who, by the way, I have to say with some pride that our own show has confronted. Coglianese Ganamort ran into her in some sort of island buffet when he was on vacation, and she was there, and he just read her the riot act. He gave her the shame on you speech. It's so awesome that he did that. Shame on you. For what you did to all these kids during COVID, for all the crap that you rooted on. Here she is today saying, it's a real shame that we can't screw these kids up more because there are parents who want to fire us for screwing up their children. Who do these parents think they are? Their parents. Randy Weingarten. And so these are the types of people that they're featuring at the DNC. She's a feature of the Democrat convention. And they have no sense of shame whatsoever about any of this. Any of this. Just amazing. Tonight, Joe Biden is set to speak. Joe Biden. They are burying the current president of the United States on night one of the Democrat convention. Does that not tell you the entire story? This is, if not the final, certainly the latest indignity that they've heaped upon him. And because he is a sucker, he's falling for it. He'll stand up on stage and he'll dutifully mouth the words in as incoherent a way as he possibly can that they feed him on a teleprompter tonight. They wrote a script for Biden, and they're sending him off on Monday night. This is the crappiest possible billing you could have for the current president of the United States. You would think if they were doing a baton handoff, he would speak on Thursday, just before Kamala Harris. He would speak, be like, and then now it's time to step aside. She can continue my great agenda, blah, 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 blah. Here she is, Kamala Harris. And everyone goes wild. That's not what they're going to do for a bunch of reasons. One of them is his record is awful. Secondly, she is running away from it. She's creating distance from his record as if she wasn't a part of it, because that record also belongs to her. She cast the tie-breaking votes on all of the out-of-control spending bills that have driven up inflation in this country. You want to talk about this price gouging nonsense, this idea that, oh, prices are only up because of corporations. No, they're up because of you. They're up because of our government. Because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden spent, not like drunken sailors, because at least drunken sailors have money to use when they spend. They spent in the most absurd possible ways. They printed out money, these thieves, or as Kash Patel calls them, government gangsters, these gangsters. They print this money, and you're stuck with the bag. The reason things are so expensive is because of the government. It's because of the Federal Reserve. It's because of the bills that they signed into law, which spent untold sums of money, trillions upon trillions of dollars, and hurt you and all of our communities. And so this is the record they're coming in on. So Biden is on night one because they just want to give it the yada, yada, yada. They're like, that's it. Okay, thanks. I wonder how long his speech will be tonight. Would they just roll him across the stage? You know, here he is. There he goes. Goodbye. All right, let's move on, everyone. It's party time. As Kamala Harris pretends she's got a day one agenda coming. Be like, don't you worry. She's going to get control of all these problems we're currently living through under the current administration that's run by, who is it again? Oh, yeah, Biden-Harris. So, you're going to secure the border? Day one, secure the border. You're going to get inflation under control? How are you going to do that? We're going to stop price gouging. Or as she calls it, price gauging. Idiot. She's like, we're going to stop price gauging. What? Price gauging. And then we will be served, and of course, like, you know, just to once again demonstrate how out of touch they are with everybody, they have all these Hollywood celebrities flying in. They're going to do all these big events on stages all around the DNC. They're all going to be there and supporting the team, getting Kamala across the finish line. And Kamala's going to get up there. What is she going to say on Thursday night? What is Kamala Harris going to possibly say? I mean, the answer is she's going to lie to you. That is the clearest answer. She's going to lie to you. She's going to lie to you about the current record, and then she's going to act as if she has nothing to do with the failures of the current record. Yes, that's right. It's incoherent. And then promise everything's going to get better starting next year. You just wait. You're going to love a Kamala administration, as tyrannical as it will be. All right, let's go to the phones. I've got Dan calling in from Columbus, Ohio now, line one. Hello, Dan. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Dan. Are we having a connection issue? We might. I'm sorry that we couldn't get Kash back. Our impression was that it may have been his side, but this is leading me to believe it's our side. All right. Let's see. Let's try Nick in Purcellville, line 3. Nick, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. I hear you.
I hear you too. Great, Nick. All right, go for it, sir.
All right. I suggest the Democrats invite Australian breakdancer extraordinaire Ray Gunn to exhibit her courageous breakdancing on the final day of their convention. After all, Ray Gunn and Kamala have something in common. And, Ray Gunn got a 0 score at the Olympics, and Kamala hasn't had one garden variety Democrat vote for her.
I'm sorry. So tell me, because I didn't follow this. I just glancingly saw this ridiculous breakdancing routine. Her name's actually Ray Gunn, Nick?
No, I think it's her last name's Gunn, but I think her name is let's see.
It's Ray something. But
yeah.
she went. Was this some sort of like Borat stunt that she went to the Olympics and was spinning around like an idiot?
This is all a scam. Her husband and her ran the Olympic breakdancing committee. They were in charge of it.
Oh, you never want to do that. You don't want to mix your wife in there. That's how you. Oh, that's terrible. Okay, well, yeah, no, she'd be perfect at the DNC then, based on that. She'd be spot on. Another miserable performance, just like the ones that are outside. They're musically inept. So, yeah, a breakdancer who doesn't know how to breakdance would be perfect for that stage. Thank you, Nick. Good advice. Plus, she's not American, so even better. Hey, coming up on the program, I've got Julio Rosas joining us. He'll tell us about that chaos outside.